you see this face and you hear this voice, it means that the 49ers lost on Sunday and Zain didn't get to do the intro to this podcast. You are listening to Audacy's 49ers Web Zone No Huddle podcast. We laugh to keep from crying. I am Brian Rennick. I am joined by Al Sacco and Zain Nakvi, and we are here to cry, to make ourselves feel better, to let you guys rant in the comment section, whatever the case may be. All of us still need to process and recover from that nightmare in Philadelphia. And I'm going to let the guy that spends all of his time on the East Coast start us off here. Al, man, what happened?
Welcome to the shit show. Welcome to the shit show. Guys, here's where I have to start. We're going to get into the game, obviously, but the news broke tonight on a Monday evening that Brock Purdy does have a tear in his UCL. It doesn't look like he's going to need reconstructive from what they think right now. And reconstructive would be Tommy John surgery. It does not look like he's going to need that, but it does look like a 6-month recovery for the repair, putting him coming back probably training camp-ish, whether it's a little bit in training camp or whatever. Either way, it's not good news. And it just, I feel bad for him, but I feel bad for 49ers fans too, because in an era when QBs are protected to the point where they're playing into their 40s, where guys are playing 7 to 10, 12 years without injuries. And I'm going to give you some specific examples. The 49ers since 2015, now some of this was because of play, but a lot of it's been because of injury. 2015, Kaepernick and Gabbert played 8 games apiece. This is QB starts. Started 8 games apiece. 2016, Kaepernick 11, Gabbert 5. 2017, Hoyer 6, Beathard 5, Garoppolo 5. 2018, Mullins 8, Beathard 5, Garoppolo 3. 2019, Jimmy Garoppolo started every game, 19.
Woo!
Awesome. 2020, Mullins 8, Garoppolo 6, Beathard 2. 2021, Garoppolo 18, although he played a lot of the end of the season injured. Lance 2. And this season, Purdy 8, Garoppolo 10, Lance 2. And I'm going to throw Josh Johnson in there because he had to play in the freaking NFC Championship. How ridiculous is this? Well, listen to this, you guys. If you look at quarterbacks who have played, not somebody like a Sam Darnold who's in and out of the lineup, QBs who play every week, franchise guys. Drew Brees, he didn't miss a game in 13 years. Matt Ryan missed 1 game in 12 years. Russell Wilson didn't miss a game in 9 years. Brady was injured once in 21 years. Derek Carr missed 2 games in his first 8 years. Everybody said Matthew Stafford gets hurt. He did this year, but he played every game in 11 out of 12 years. This is not normal. Kirk Cousins played every game but 2 in 9 years. Quarterbacks don't get hurt like this. Aaron Rodgers is somebody you say, well, Al, Rodgers got hurt a couple times. He did, but he's played every game in 12 of 14 years. So he had a couple seasons where he got hurt, but it's not like this. The Niners have had 1 quarterback, 1, play every game in the last 8 years. 1. It's insane. You can't make it up. And well, like I said, we'll get into the game, but the biggest kick in the balls, and we'll talk about all the kicks in the balls that we've been through the past decade, is the Niners didn't even have a chance to compete because their starting quarterback got injured six plays into their drive. After their starting quarterback got injured in the second game of the season, and then after their next starting quarterback got injured in week 13, and the guy is probably the best of all of them, which was a freaking miracle, gets his elbow hit and tears his freak. Are you kidding me? There's not even like a precedent for this injury coming back unless you're a baseball pitcher, because it doesn't happen unless you're a 49ers quarterback, because let's just make up injuries at this point. What else can go wrong? And it's at this point, like, I'm not blaming anybody. I don't know if it's a curse. Maybe it's curse. Maybe it's bad luck, whatever. It's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And holy shit, is it ever going to end?
When Brock Purdy went down, and first of all, that's a fantastic open to the show, Brian. That was so good. I was literally like almost in tears laughing, right? That was so good.
Thank you.
When Purdy went down and he left the game and it was clear that he wasn't going to return, because there was a point on the sideline where he was just standing there and he had his helmet on, but he wasn't throwing or anything. I'm like, he's not coming back in this game. It was at that point I'm like, this game is over. But as soon as it was clear that he was not returning, that's it. They don't have a chance. And Al, I'm with you. The thing that sucks the most out of this entire situation, this was Kyle Shanahan's best team, and we'll never know. We'll never know how far they could have gone. We'll never know how they could have competed against the number one team in the league in the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll never know if they could have gone all the way. And to me, that just stinks to holy hell because, first of all, I through all of the statistics that you pointed out, Al, specifically this year, the job that Kyle did with his first, second, third string quarterbacks and to get them this far, just an all-time fantastic job that Kyle did to be able to get what he did out of this team and the quarterback situation that he did. Unbelievable job by him. And there comes a point where you just can't sustain any more injuries. And that's exactly what happened in this game. And I know, Al, that you'll get into this game, but Kyle has been through, I think I counted 14 different quarterback changes. Even I'm not talking about different quarterback changes, whether it's going from CJ to Garoppolo back to Mullins and whatever it is, 14 of them in his 6 years here. That's an absurd amount of turnover at the most important position, arguably in sports. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the offensive line. I don't know if it's the scheme that's not conducive to protecting the quarterbacks well enough. I don't know if it's, I thought of this all of yesterday. I'm like, why is it the Niners specifically that have this issue over other teams? And one of the thoughts that came to my mind was that, what if it's Kyle's system and the amount of processing time that it takes to be able to get the ball to where it needs to go to? And the quarterbacks that he's had, and you can agree, some of them have been good to very good, but none of them have been elite here in San Francisco, right? That's something that we can agree on. And elite quarterbacks, they excel at processing. And that's something that you hear Steve Young here all the time, that he says that all the time, is processing speed. And when you're a young, inexperienced quarterback or a mid-level quarterback like Jimmy is, your processing speed is what prevents you from being elite, right? Amongst the other physical traits that you have. So maybe it's the speed at which they process is not fast enough to be conducive to be effective in this system. And it causes them to hold the ball, which opens them up to taking more hits. Like, look, Trey's thing was kind of like a freak thing. He ran and he ran into the fattest part of the line and he got hurt. But like with Jimmy and Purdy, they were holding the ball and they got hurt in the pocket because they're waiting for stuff to happen. So to me, I think that if you were to bring in a guy like Brady or Rodgers or whoever it may be that we'll talk about in a little bit, maybe this processing time decreases and they're able to get the ball out of their hands quicker and find an open receiver. Look, I'm not blaming Kyle for Purdy's injury. It was a terrible matchup that Kyle created in his team because you put Tyler Kroft, who is tight end 2, and probably your worst blocking tight end outside of Kittle, because I feel like Warner and Dwelly are better blocking tight ends, and you put him against their best, Hassan Reddick, their best pass rusher on the best pass rushing defensive line in the league. And yes, the Eagles did exploit that, but I wonder if you had somebody else back there that was faster at processing, get the ball out faster, and you prevent yourselves from making that injury. So look, that we've seen this play happen 100 times before where the quarterback gets his arm hit and they're totally fine and nothing happens to him.
It happened to Josh Allen this year.
But he played with it, right? He didn't tear it.
But I'm just saying, same play, right? Hit his arm while he's coming forward. I'm just saying same thing, not to the extent that Purdy did. And that's another, like, what the heck?
Yeah. So it's like, I just think that at some point, I wonder that if you had, I mean, Josh Allen had it too, so processing speed kind of goes out the window because he's an elite quarterback, right? But I mean, I wonder what would happen if you gave somebody who's just getting the ball out quicker to Kyle, and if he was able to avoid that. Now, I think that there's something that led up to that point that caused the urgency to score in that drive. As we kind of like talk about the game here a little bit, maybe if it was a tie game, they don't feel the urgency to throw as much, and they play the field position battle. And they
it was so early. I just think
sixth place. It was the sixth.
It was so
offensive
early.
Play of the game.
I just think he thought he had a shot. I think he just thought he had a shot dialed up there. They took a slow time.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, though. They were already down 7-0. If you go down 14-0, if you're punting on that drive and you're going down 14-0, that's a really deep hole to climb out of in Philly. So I think there was urgency to score there. I think, and that's what caused him to think that he had a shot. So again, like, this is all what ifs and we don't know. The most frustrating thing to me is not about like, oh, this person's fault or that's person's fault. It's the most frustrating thing to me is that this was one of the best 49ers teams that we've seen in a couple of decades. and we'll never know because of the quarterback injury situation. We'll never know how far they could have gone, what their ceiling was. We will never know. And that is the most frustrating thing.
You know, Al, you went back all the way to 2015, right? For all of your stats for quarterbacks and when they played. And like, here's the thing, just like this game, right? This is all about what ifs, and there's no explanation, right? We're not going to be able to find an explanation. You know, is it a curse? Is it bad luck? Whatever the case may be, it certainly seems like it only happens to the 49ers. You went back all the way to 2015. I'd like to throw a date out for you. That date is July 17th, 2014. Anybody know what happened that day?
July 17th, 2014. I feel like I should know this, and I'm disappointed that I don't.
That was the day that Levi Stadium opened. July 17th, 2014. And we joke, right? Is it a curse? Is it whatever? That feels like a curse to me. Now, again, do we believe in curses? I don't know. But the 49ers have not had a quarterback start every game of the season except once since Levi Stadium opened, right? And it's like, well, why does that matter? Well, how far away is Levi Stadium from San Francisco, right? Like, is this like, did they absolutely curse this team to have no opportunities moving forward at the quarterback position? I have no idea. But at this point, you got to start grasping at straws, right? Because there's really no legitimate explanation for why something like this happened. And, you know, I hear what you're saying, Zane, in terms of like, is it the system? But Matt Ryan didn't miss a game playing for Kyle Shanahan, right?
Yeah,
and I imagine if you go back and you look at, like, how many seasons did Matt Schaub play every game under Kyle Shanahan? And I guarantee
one out of
probably
two.
at least one. Okay.
One he did.
So
yeah, one out of two.
Right. But again,
I don't know what
was
the
only
context
there.
was in the year that
Right.
Stage Rosenfeld's played 5 games that first year. I don't know what the context was, but
Gotcha. And I don't know if Rosenfels were those the first 5 games?
No idea.
Then,
I'd have to go back. I just saw that Schaub had 11 starts and 16 in those 2 years. So
yeah. So I don't know that you can blame the system. And then it's like, well, can you blame the offensive line? Well, Trey Lance, like you said, Zane, his was on a tackle, 8 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. Right. Jimmy Garoppolo's knee injury was on a scramble outside the pocket, right? Jimmy Garoppolo's foot injury, again, a scramble outside the pocket, not getting rid of the ball quick enough. Jimmy Garoppolo's high ankle sprain. Like, we could just go on, right? But
yeah, like 21, yeah.
but that's the thing, is like, it defies explanation. It defies logic. It defies anything that we could possibly come up with, you know, just by trying to figure it out on our own. The reality, though, is, you know, there's been a lot of talk prior to this game. What are the 49ers going to do with Trey Lance in the offseason? Are they going to trade Trey Lance? There's reports today. Mike Sando in The Athletic spoke to a GM. That GM thinks that the 49ers are going to trade Trey Lance and sign Tom Brady. And I mean, that GM drew a connection between he said the trade would be to Tennessee, which is where Rand Carthen, who just got the job there, came from San Francisco. The 49ers need to carry 4 quarterbacks on this roster at this point. Like, why would they be getting rid of one? Why would they be getting rid of one? And not only that, but you're incurring a dead cap hit of almost $11 million for the season.
It doesn't make sense.
If you trade Trey Lance, it makes zero sense. It makes literally 0 cents on 6 different fronts. So let's put that one to bed. Trey Lance is not going to be traded this offseason. Not only that, Trey Lance's trade value couldn't be lower right now. So again, what are you getting for Trey Lance? Are you punting on the development of Trey Lance, a 23-year-old kid, for a 2nd round pick, a 3rd round pick? You're not getting a 1st rounder. Right. So I don't know. There's no answer. There's really no answer. But the fact of the matter is the frustrating part of that game is all it's ever going to be is a what if, you know, and I'm tired of these trash ass Eagles fans, you know, taking victory laps on the timeline. And it's like, you guys beat Daniel Jones, Josh Johnson, and a one-armed Brock Purdy once Josh Johnson got his concussion. And also, by the way, a lot of you Eagles fans, genuine pieces of shit for the way that you celebrated these injuries. Like just an absolute trash fan base for the majority of them. So congratulations to you. I hope Patrick Mahomes whoops your ass in the Super Bowl.
You guys pay so much attention to randos. Like, I don't know why you let these people get under your skin. I always say, like, with Twitter, like, if the three of us are sitting in a bar and we're talking about the Niners game or whatever, and some dude comes up to you with 3 teeth and weighs 400 pounds and is slurring and was like, Niners suck, you'd be like, dude, get out of my face, or you'd laugh him off. But on Twitter, we're like, oh, look what this guy said. Who cares?
That's fair.
Who cares what these people say? That's my whole thing. I tell Zain this all the time. I think it's ridiculous. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, get into the game. We're going to have so much time to talk about this quarterback stuff. We got a long off season. I'm texting you guys today. We need to like plan our off season shows. And then it's the 49ers. So it's always a soap opera. So we'll have plenty of things to talk about. And the quarterback thing is going to be a big point. We'll talk maybe more this show or next show. Believe me, there's going to be a lot of talk about who the quarterback may be.
Bring Brady home.
There's going to be a lot of Tom Brady talk, man. A lot of Tom Brady talk, especially if we don't know about Lance's health. But looking at this game, I wrote down 4 things in my notes, like as I was going through. And I think kind of if you go through those 4 things, it'll take us through the game. I wrote down, these are the words I wrote: challenge, Croft, before the half, and discipline. So there are 4 things I wrote about the game. So maybe if we you guys go off whatever tangent you want to, but we'll start with the challenge because that sort of set things in the shit show in motion, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 4th and 3. Hurts, I thought, had a really good first drive. I thought he was taking what the defense gave him. He was running around a little bit, extending plays. And on the 4th and 3, he throws the pass to Devontae Smith, who looked like he caught it with one hand and came down and grabbed it. He obviously did not. Now, it was very hard to tell on the replay. But when you look at it, he got up and he was running to the line and he was like, snap, 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 snap it. That's got to be throw the flag right there.
Mm-hmm.
Throw the flag. It's 4. If it was 3rd and 3 or it was 4th and 3, I think you got to throw the flag there personally. I think that not happening obviously changed a lot of things. You could do the predetermined outcome thing. Does Purdy ever get hurt? Whatever. But just looking at that play, I thought the challenge flag should have been thrown. I thought it was worth it. And it did, we didn't know at the time because they ended up tying the game and everything, but it did sort of set off a chain of events that turned into maybe one of the biggest shit shows in 49ers history. Where were you guys on that? Did you think they should have thrown it? Did you think it was too close?
I absolutely thought, go ahead, Zane.
No, right.
I was going to say, I absolutely thought they should have thrown it. Here's the thing. Is it the first drive of the game? 100%. But that's the point. You're in the first half of the football game, right? If you get it wrong, what does it cost you? 1 timeout. 1 timeout in the first half, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who cares? Who gives a shit? It's 1 timeout, right? And so Shanahan explained it in the post game, and I understand his explanation. We looked up the replay on the scoreboard was inconclusive. We didn't have time to have our guys look at it behind the scenes, so we didn't challenge it. Devontae Smith is not getting up and running that fast to the line if he knows that he caught that ball. That's your first clue. That's your first clue. Oh, shit, like maybe we should take a look at this. But regardless of that, just challenge it. It is a massive play. It is a massive swing of momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Just challenge it. And if you lose a first half timeout. That's it. And it's, to me, it's indicative of still, I think the biggest, I would call gripe that I have with Kyle Shanahan is his in-game management. It's still not great. It really isn't. It's not great. And I genuinely believe that a lot of these play calling head coaches really struggle with in-game management. The biggest example being Andy Reid for damn near 2 decades, right? Still doesn't manage the game very well, but he's better, obviously. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. To me, I don't think Kyle Shanahan's ego could take this, but there needs to be somebody that's there that's just helping with in-game management. Like literally that's their job, right? Because he's so focused, and I get it. He's so focused on play calling. He's focused on, all right, here's what happened on this drive. Here's what I got to dial up next drive based on what I saw from the defense. Like he's got so much to think about. Just let somebody else. Let Anthony Lynn. He's he's the co-head coach, right? Or whatever that title is that he has. Let him do something, right? So that's the biggest gripe I have is it's just another example of what I think is the worst part of Kyle Shanahan's head coaching ability, and that's his in-game management.
So look, he's not to blame for the loss, right? It's not his fault.
No.
I don't want to at all say that like what I'm about to say, it indicates there's any fault of Kyle here. There were errors that he made that in the game that are indicative of a pattern, like you said, of his in-game management. But I don't think it's his fault by any means that they lost. You can't control an injury. However, Trey Wingo actually tweeted at Stats today, and I don't know if you guys saw that, but he quote tweeted Stats saying that they should have challenged it, and it was a big deal because games, I'm loosely quoting this, that games are like waves. You know, they ebb and flow, and you don't know what that chain of events that would have set off. Because look, as soon as he caught that, I was yelling at the TV, throw the challenge flag, throw the flag. Because it looked like he did bobble it, right? Like it looked like he had a little bit of trouble. You can tell, right? It looked like he kind of bobbled it a little when he was trying to get it in. And I was like, look, throw the challenge flag. Even if you're not sure, throw it, because that is a huge momentum boost, because essentially you are taking points off the board for Philadelphia. They're in field goal range at the very least. You have a chance to take points off of the board. Do it. Andy Reid, this is the difference between Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid. Andy Reid in the night game, there's a pass in the red zone to Kadarius Toney where he looked like he made a really good catch. I don't think I saw that. He actually got injured on the play too. He looked like he made a good catch and looked like he beat the receiver for a touchdown. They called it incomplete. Andy Reid challenged it because at that point, I think either the game was 6-3 or 6-0 at that time, right? It was 3-0, I think, at that time. A touchdown would have been huge at that point. Threw the challenge flag. I think it was the third quarter. That was his last challenge. Used it up. He didn't care. Actually, no, it was the first challenge. The second challenge he had was a spot of a first down. So you have coaches that are challenging first down spots, and Kyle doesn't want to challenge a fourth down play that could have literally changed the course of the game at that point. And I know it's the first drive of the game, but that's a game-changing play. And even if you're not sure, throw the flag. You know who throws the flag in that instance? Pete Carroll will throw the flag in that instance. Andy Reid will throw that flag in that instance. Most coaches will throw the challenge flag, even if you're not sure, because if you can flip that play, it changes everything. They would have got the ball at the 38, 40-yard line, their own 38 or 40-yard line, plus no points on the board for the Eagles. So at the very least, that's a psychological win for your team. And again, all it costs you is a challenge. And at that point, did Kyle use his challenges at all in the game? No. Did he use any of his timeouts in the first half? No. He went in the half with 3 timeouts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was frustrating.
It's very frustrating. And I know part of it was because Josh Johnson fumbled it and absolutely made a mockery out of that, the end of that first half. But the risk reward to that challenge at the beginning of the game is huge. Why wouldn't you challenge that? You have every reason to challenge that. They're inside of your 10-yard line. If he doesn't catch that play is null and you get the ball back. I don't understand, even if you're not sure. And that's the problem. That's the biggest gripe I have with Kyle as well, is his in-game management, the indecision. That challenge flag should be out no matter what. And he's scared. He coaches scared in the playoffs. And that's what bugs me the most about him, is that he goes into a shell and he's so singularly focused on one thing that he can't understand what the hell is going on. And again, not his fault that they lost. It's not his fault about the Brock injury, but that particular play changed the course of the game, because if they don't score that 7 points and everything still happens the way that it does, you're still only down 7 points going into the half. And that's a doable comeback coming out in the second half with the ball. Instead, Josh Johnson fumbles, they get another touchdown, you're down 14 points, and that's it. The game's out of reach at that point.
And after the challenge, they come out of it, and I really thought Purdy only threw 2 passes, but he looked pretty poised, and he was maybe slinging it a little bit. Yeah, he completes the ball to Kittle, then there's some runs mixed in there, and he completes the pass to Ayuk. And you're like, all right. And then it happens where it's a slow developing play-action play. Hassan Reddick, who really, you could argue, could have been one of the candidates for Defensive Player of the Year. He had 16.5 sacks. He was phenomenal, especially towards the end of the season. Blows it up, and somebody else blew it up too. I don't know who the other rusher was, but Reddick hits Purdy's arm, and the rest is history. And for this, my initial thought is, why the hell is Tyler Kroft, who's really your 4th-string tight end, why is he even trying to block Hassan Reddick? So I tried to go to people who are smarter than me with this. I just tried to, see what people had to say. And Kyle said himself, well, on a play like that, you usually have tight ends blocking edge rushers on the end. Okay. I think it was Joe Thomas who kind of said the same thing. We have JJ Watt saying, when are you going to stop having tight ends try to block, these pass rushers? It wasn't George Kittle, who's a great blocker. Again, this is your fourth string tight end. And the results were disastrous. So I'm not going to sit and pretend I know what play was or I just know, in common sense wise, maybe Tyler Kroft shouldn't be trying to block Hassan Reddick, and the results were disastrous, and there's nothing we could do. It happened. But again, just right there, the game was over. And that's super frustrating that the team couldn't compete. And this is where you got to separate like fandom from like, we're trying to do a show and we're trying to be professional here, because like the fan in me was, I was ballistic. But, I'm trying to look at this sort of in the most rational way possible. Maybe it just wasn't anybody's fault. Maybe Kroft just whiffed.
And here's where I push back on the people that are genuinely upset on that play. That was the first play that happened, right? It's not like Kyle kept dialing up play after play with Kroft blocking Reddick, and this was the third sack that Reddick had got. It was the sixth offensive play of the game, right? Like, again, we're not talking about a pattern of play calling that put Kroft in that position. It was simply one play. And so I guarantee if you went back and reviewed every film, there's film of every game, you're going to see a lot of times that Kyle Shanahan dialed up a play where one tight end was tasked with blocking an edge rusher, right? Like,
probably right.
That's
we
just
probably never noticed it because nothing happened.
Right. It's just the NFL. That's just part of it. And so that's where, initially there were people, again, on the timeline, 49er fans just livid. Why is Kroft on, Hassan Reddick? It just worked out that way. Like, it just did. And unfortunately that was the result of the play. And so, like we said earlier, the frustrating part is just simply that we have no idea. We have no idea what would have happened in this game if Brock Purdy doesn't get injured. I'm pretty confident that at the very least it would have been competitive. I thought it was going to be a dogfight the entire week. I never once thought that this was a game that the 49ers had in the bag, but I also never thought this was a game that the Eagles had in their bag. And if you look at the game and you look at the stats, the performance of the defense, obviously they allowed 31 points. I understand that, but they also were on the field for 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the first half, it would have been 14-7 without Josh Johnson fumbling a snap that hit him in the hands and put them in the red zone to start their drive. Right.
And they scored if they challenged it.
Right. Or if you challenge that, it's 7-7. Right. So this game was not by any stretch some kind of dominating performance by the Eagles. They just simply took advantage of the fact that the 49ers didn't have an offense after the sixth offensive play of the game. Right? They just didn't. Josh Johnson wasn't going to win this game for the 49ers. 49ers were never going to win this game the minute that Josh Johnson became the quarterback for the rest of the game. The game ended. It just did. And you look across the league, well, the Philadelphia Eagles, with as stacked a roster as they were, how many games did they win when their backup quarterback had to play?
They lost 2.
0. Yeah. They had 2 games. They lost both of them. So the NFL is not a league where you should be winning games consistently with your backup quarterback, which just puts into perspective more what Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy did this entire season. It makes you appreciate it more because, like I said, most teams have a backup the caliber of Josh Johnson, and we saw what happened. So, is it does Kyle Shanahan put his quarterback in harm's way? I don't think so. I don't think he does it any more than any other play caller does. It just is what it is. And it's frustrating because as fans, we want to be able to point to something that we can shake our fist at and be mad at, right? I want to be able to get that out. And
you want
really
to blame
it's just
someone for something like that.
I want to blame someone.
There's got to be somebody to blame.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the reality is there isn't anyone. And then it's like, well, that feels just as shitty as this loss. Right. So,
who am I going to take this out of?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, so that being said, like, look, again, not Kyle's fault, right? not Kyle's fault that Purdy got injured because, like I said, like that play happens all the time, and guys don't end up with an injury, right? Where they're blindsided or they get hit on their arm, and it just doesn't, and they're fine. I think Bosa had one on Dak, I think, or I don't remember. Or no, they had one on Geno Smith. They had the fumble that happened on Geno Smith. That's essentially what happened. I think they hit his arm, right? So really, it happens all the time, and guys don't get hurt. But that being said, so it's really hard to change game plans and schemes in the middle of a season and where they were in the stretch run. You can't do that. Like all that stuff is installed in the off season, right? Like when you tailor a game plan, you add certain concepts, you do that in the off season, unless you add like a guy like Christian McCaffrey and you have to integrate him. But for the most part, all that stuff that's done in the off season to ask for scheme change in the playoffs, against a certain team because they have a certain player, certain group of players that are elite. It's really hard. You kind of have to go with what you have. So in Kyle's defense, like you can't account for that, right? Like you can't account for everything that happens in injuries and attrition and all that stuff, right? You kind of have to do the best with what you have. But that being said, I looked at how the Chiefs handled Patrick Mahomes and his injury in the beginning of that game. And like, I was curious. I'm like, how is Andy Reid going to handle this situation with a really, really good Bengals defense and a pretty decent pass rush? What is he going to do? First couple of passes, half rollout, short throws to Travis Kelce, throw to the Juju, get the ball out of his hands, quick run to McKinnon. And nothing was really Mahomes holding the ball. It would just get the ball out of his hand. And I just wonder, I'm like, does Kyle even think about that in his scheme? Or is it all just like, hey, I'm going to wait for this play to develop and hold the ball until somebody comes open or throw the ball down the field? Like, where are the quick hitting passes? Where are the dump offs to the running backs? Where are all of those things? It just seems like, and these are all of the things that make his offense really successful as well, because he gets a lot of chunk plays. But my question to you guys is that where are all of these little small dump offs to get your quarterback in rhythm, the rhythm throws? Where are all of these? Is it just like going to be more of the same in the future with Trey or Brock or whoever's quarterback here, where you're just holding the rock and waiting for somebody to get open while the pass rush is bearing down on you? Or is he going to change this a little bit and be like, look, I want the ball out of your hand in 1 second. Like as soon as you hit your back foot, the ball's gone. And it's just kind of an open-ended question. I don't know. Do you guys feel that same way as well when you watch other quarterbacks and how quickly they release the ball?
I mean, I think Kyle's very married to his system. I think he's stubborn in a lot of ways, and he thinks, and he does have a very good system, but like he's married to what he wants to do. You know what I mean? I think he's kind of, I'm going to plug you into here and I would say hit the A button, hit the B button and throw it here. That's probably what I would say for that. I would do got to move because we're coming on time though. So the third thing in this game was before the half, guys. Two things to me happened two things did happen before the half. The first was the refs started to assert themselves in this game. Oh, and the refs asserted them. We can talk about this forever, but the refs asserted themselves in both of these games, and it was an absolute shame. There were 28 accepted penalties in both of the games, and the refs, which was a really good evening game, it was slowed down and muddied because the refs were so bad and taking time and everything else. It was really bad. But the refs started to sort of assert themselves, and some of the penalties, the McGill hands to the face, was he getting held fine, but it was also hands to the face. I get it. Thought the Jimmy Ward thing was pretty ticky-tacky. I think the other one was on Charvarius Ward. It might have been a little bit ticky-tacky too. The bottom line is that there were 7 first downs on penalties that the Eagles got. And on the drive before the half, it was 7-7 with 1:36 left in the second quarter. 3 first downs on that drive via penalties. And here you go. The Eagles go 14-7. Then what happens is Kyle Shanahan, is he going to be aggressive or is he going to sit on the ball because he's getting the ball at the end of the half? Or at the beginning of the third quarter, I should say. How many times have we seen him sit on the ball? I was glad he was aggressive because at that point, screw it. Like you just go for it, man. Like you got freaking Josh Johnson. He hits the pass. And then I think what happened on the next play, Johnson hasn't taken reps. Maybe he's looking at the defense. The ball gets snapped. He fumbles it. Nobody expects your quarterback to fumble a snap there. And then obviously they recovered the fumble. And that's when I think the deflation started to happen. And it's 21-7. The game is over. So the end of the half, that minute, whatever it was, just totally changed everything from kind of the refs giving the Eagles first downs, whether you think it was warranted or not. And then the fumble. And that was it. That was the turning point. That was when I'm opening the bottle of whiskey and it's just, I can't take it anymore.
I'm surprised that you waited that long to open.
I thought it was all after Purdy, but I think that, so look, I'm not one to blame officiating. I'm not one to say that like the officials had any sort of influence on the outcome of this game because the game was over when Brock Purdy went down, frankly, right? But that being said, the 7 penalties via first down are the most in a playoff game ever. They're tied for the most. So this here, or at least in a championship game, they're tied for the most. So what happened with the 49ers and the officials, it happened at a time at an inflection point during this game where if the Niners could have stopped them, which they did, 2 of those penalties were on third down. Okay. The Ward penalty and both Ward penalties were on third down. They were going to get the ball back. And at that point, the game was tied. And the officials decided to insert themselves. Like, I hate conspiracy theories, especially when it comes to the NFL, but I feel like the NFL specifically wanted this matchup with the Eagles and Chiefs. They wanted this. And I tweeted it out at the beginning of the playoffs just in jest. Like, oh yeah, like they want the Eagles and Chiefs. Let's see if the 49ers can spoil the party. And it just feels like that they manipulated this thing to high hell, right? Like where they called penalties at a certain point in time where they knew that would affect the game. And it was almost like clockwork where you were like, okay, here comes the flag. And lo and behold, there was the flag. And look, were they penalties? I mean, maybe, but in the playoffs, in a championship game, you can't call that. You can't call that. And to that point, like everybody's talking about it this day, but I hate the fact that they were a factor. And now what do? Everybody's pissed off about it. And especially in the Chiefs game was even more egregious. And now what are you doing? It doesn't matter. The Chiefs and Eagles moved on. We're just left talking about it now. What's going to happen to those officials? Nothing. What's going to happen to the league? Nothing. What's going to happen with the teams that lost? Nothing. So look, would the Niners have now knowing that Brock is out for 6 months, even if they won the game, they're losing the Super Bowl. You're not winning the Super Bowl with Josh Johnson against the Chiefs. I hate to say it.
Unless maybe Jimmy comes back.
If Jimmy came back, maybe, but he hasn't played for 2.5 months. So, again, like all in all, like, yeah, in the end, it wouldn't have mattered. But that being said, the officiating was awful in both games, and the NFL should be ashamed.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not super familiar with the rules, but if an offensive player moves before the ball is snapped, that's called a false start, correct?
Lane Johnson all game.
Unless you're Lane Johnson.
Lane Johnson all game was leaving early all game. And how many penalties did they call on him? None. Look, they weren't winning this game. We know that. We've said it. I'm not claiming that they would have won the game. But it's just egregiously pathetic to watch something like that. And not only that, but there are unbiased NFL shills, to be perfectly honest, talking on the timeline yesterday about how poor the officiating was in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Greenberg tweeted out about it. Richard Sherman tweeted out about it. That's not quite unbiased. I think I saw 2 or 3 other people tweet out about it. That's a problem. That's a problem for the league, and they don't care. And they don't care because, to me, it seems like they're okay with it. Because if they don't address it, that's what that says. That says that they're okay with it. It says that at the highest level, we can't do any better than this dog shit that we see Sunday in and Sunday out. And I refuse to believe that that's the case. And that's the other thing. If this is such an issue, there are really, really simple and easy fixes, like an eye in the sky, like in soccer, right? You've got a head official up somewhere that says, wait a second, that was a penalty, or, hey, you threw this flag, but that wasn't right. There's a way to fix it. The NFL refuses to do it, which tells me, again, that they want that type of thing happening on the field. Because if they didn't, they'd do something about it. And they don't, and they won't. And that's the reality of the situation. Like I said, I'm not willing to go out and say like the NFL wants to orchestrate endings to seasons, but how else do you explain their unwillingness to address this situation with any logical fix for it? Because they don't, and it's irritating. So, and when we talk about undisciplined, right? at that point, I think when they went down 21-7 right before the half, I think everyone on that team knew that it was over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you saw the frustration for the first time all year. Really.
This is over. Like, there's nothing we can do. We don't have a quarterback. Some reporter asked George Kittle in the postgame, how does it feel to lose this game with your quarterback, going down like that? And I loved Kittle's response. He said, how does it feel to lose a game when you don't have a quarterback? Feels pretty shitty. And that was his response. Yeah. And I'm like, perfect response, right? This entire team knew by halftime that this game was over. And so we could talk about undisciplined play on defense when in reality that defense, like I said, was on the field for 40 minutes. I guarantee at some point they said, screw this. I'm done. And you saw it with Trent Williams. Although for everyone that, is up in arms about Trent Williams, that entire scuffle started because the guy that he threw to the ground grabbed a hold of Debo's face mask and wouldn't let go. And Trent Williams said, I'll make you let go. And he threw him out the club. And I loved it because that's Trent Williams sticking up for his dudes. Right. Yeah. Does it matter that he got ejected? No, I don't care. What I care about is him defending his teammates. I'm more impressed with that than I am losing his composure. I honestly don't care.
It just all bottled up, I think, with them and kind of exploded with the refs and the quarterback thing. And you saw them do things that weren't usually Niners usually very resilient. Mm-hmm. They just kind of lost their shit because I just think everything that was there. But, I do want to give Ted Nguyen, who writes for The Athletic, he posted something on Twitter that I saw today. The game within the game, and I do want to give the Eagles credit because the Eagles have terrific offensive and defensive lines. And what was happening in the game is the Eagles were getting in 3 wide receiver sets, and they started running to San Francisco's weak side, where the Niners only had three defenders over there, and they were pulling Kelsey over, and they started to really get big gains on the ground. Sanders scored the touchdown that made it 14-7 off that. Now, the third quarter, the Niners adjusted, and they moved Hufanga over there, and they were able to get a stop. What Philly did with that was they said, okay, you're going to move Hufanga over there. Now we're going to fake it to the running back or just have the running back block, and we're going to have Hurts take the ball. Running back blocks Hufanga. They get the same blockers out there, and Hurts was able to get a big gain. So the Eagles did some good things on the line, too. The Eagles, did you guys see some of those Javon Kinlaw plays? When I was going back and watching some film plays, he got pushed. He looked like he was on skates a lot. So the refs, it was bullshit. Obviously, the quarterback, it could not have been a competitive game with the quarterback. But I do want to give the Eagles are very good on the lines, and they did some creative. They have a good coaching staff. This isn't, these are the 2 best teams in the NFC. It sucks that the Niners couldn't compete because they didn't have the quarterback. And I said the day before when I said, listen, the Eagles are going to get theirs. And they did ultimately. I mean, it was they got help getting it, but I thought the Eagles were going to score in the 20s, but I thought the Niners would too. I thought they were going to be right there, and it was going to be a 3-point type game. And I really believe it would have been, even with how well they were playing on the lines with Purdy in there. I do. I'll take that down to my grave. I think that the Niners would have, if not won the game, it would have been a very close game. That's hard to take. But
by the way, would anyone have predicted prior to this season that everything that went down with Javon Kinlaw and Grant Cohn, and it ended up being that, despite his rhetoric and the way that he goes about it, Grant Cohn was 100% correct about Kinlaw. Man, that's brutal. That is a brutal trade. There's so many of them, right? It not even considering Patrick Mahomes in 2017 draft, right? There's going to be a lot of things that people can point to and be like, that 49ers team was really impressive under Shanahan and Lynch, especially those first 5 or 6 years. Can you imagine if this and this and this hadn't happened? There's a lot of sliding doors to look at, which is unfortunate. And there's sliding doors in this game because that's all that this game. The frustrating part, you cannot take away anything from this game. We learned nothing. No, we learned nothing from this game.
Well, we learned the Eagles are.
We didn't learn anything.
I mean, we knew that. We knew.
Did we? I mean, I'm not saying that they're not good. They are. They're really, really good. But can we look at this game and point to this is why they're good? I'm not sure because they played a team that didn't have a quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see when they do, right? Because now they get to face Patrick Mahomes in 2 weeks.
The best quarterback in this generation,
right. So it'll be interesting to see, I think that's going to be a heavyweight fight. I'm not going to watch a second of that game, but it's going to be, I'll be in Disneyland. Like legitimately, I'll be in Disneyland. We were already going to be in Disneyland. My daughter's birthday is the 13th.
Happy birthday to your daughter, man.
Thank you. Yeah. She's turning 10. So we'll be
nice.
down in Disneyland. Last year, the Super Bowl was on her birthday. We went to Six Flags in Vallejo. Nice. So, but yeah, I don't know that we learned anything about the Eagles. We know that the Eagles can absolutely destroy teams that don't belong. And once the 49ers quarterback went down, they did not belong anymore. And so they beat a Giants team that was, I don't know,
the number
punching above their weight, above their weight. And they beat a 49ers team that didn't have a starting quarterback. So again, their path to the Super Bowl might be one of the easiest of all time. Now the question is, what happens when they actually get tested by a team that does have a good quarterback in Patrick Mahomes and an offensive line that can pass block?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good matchup. I'll watch just because, whatever, like it's nice to watch the Super Bowl and not stress out, because if the Niners in the Super Bowl, I'd be a wreck for 3.5 hours. But, I think that with the Eagles, you do give them a respect because, like, yeah, they're a great team. But again, like, easiest path ever to a Super Bowl ever. Like, I don't know if there's you get the 6th seed at home. You get the easiest schedule in the league, number one. Then you ride that to a bye with only one team getting a bye now. Then you get the 6th seed at home, who you've already beaten twice in the year. And then you get a team on its practice squad 4th string quarterback after 6 plays in the second drive. So after 7.5 minutes. And man, it's just like, well, yeah, you should win that game. And now they're hooting and hollering, and all these Eagles fans and all the media and all this stuff acting like it was some big accomplishment. I promise you, Eagles fans, it was not as big of an accomplishment that you think it is. I promise you that. And you are going up against this generation's best quarterback in the Super Bowl. And we will do a show to preview the Super Bowl a little bit. We'll talk about that. And we'll talk about quarterbacks and draft and all that other fun stuff. Right now, I tweeted out before the game, is Kyle going to be Andy Reid of the Eagles, or is he going to be Andy Reid of the Chiefs? And right now, he's Andy Reid of the Eagles through no fault of his own in this game. It's not his fault, but that's 3 times he's been in the championship game, and he's just come up empty. And I really hope they can get a difference maker at the quarterback position that can stay healthy, that can take them over the top. And I really think that guy's Tom Brady, guys. I really do. I hate to bring it up, but I think that guy's Tom Brady. Bring the GOAT home.
We'll talk about that next show for sure. That was one of my things to talk about now, the quarterback. We'll probably open the next show with it. DeMeco Ryans, the quarterback position. We got a lot to talk about for the next show because it's the 49ers. As the world turns, it's a soap opera. So we're going to have a lot to talk about. So, so it's going to probably be a more eventful offseason than we had anticipated, but we'll be here for you the whole time. So for Brian and Zane, I'm Al.
Peace.
Later.